Good.
Yep.
All right. We're gonna get started. Do we need to? Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Good evening, directors, staff, members of the public who are joining us in person and online. I will now call this March 20th, 2025 regular meeting of the Twin Cities German Immersion School Board to order. Start each meeting by reflecting on our mission, vision, and values. The mission of the Twin Cities German Immersion School is the innovative education of the whole child through German immersion. Our vision is Hören, Sehen, Weltoffen denken und handeln, educating multilingual world citizens who hear others, see others, and think and act with an open mind. Our values are curiosity, kindness, challenge and support, intercultural engagement, and community. We also take a moment to read our land acknowledgement at the beginning of each board meeting, which is the following. We acknowledge and appreciate that TCGIS is located on Whakapute, Dakota traditional, ancestral, and contemporary homeland near Lake Minnewaska in the land now known as Minnesota Makoche. Our presence here is linked to generations of Whakapute stewardship over their land, as well as to the historical and ongoing injustices of settler colonization that impact Indigenous people to the present day. We are committed to understanding our role in this legacy and to educating ourselves and our community about Indigenous history through continued mindfulness and engagement in and outside of the classroom. I'll now take the roll for the record.
Director Albers.
Here.
Director Height.
Here.
Director Larson.
Here.
Director Lindner.
Here.
Director Wright.
Here.
Director Smaka.
Here.
Director Esvayesus.
I'm guessing he's on his way.
Director Yemania.
He is on his way. He's just running a little late. Oh,
There you go.
oh, perfect timing. We just called your name.
An ex officio member of the board, Executive Director Tim Fennick.
Here. All right, we have a quorum. Tonight we have a rare meeting without a special guest presenter. So certainly doesn't mean the agenda will be light though. So we'll conclude our meeting with a closed session of the board in accordance with Minnesota statute 13D.05, 13D.05 subdivision 3. The board will use this time to discuss the ongoing labor negotiations with the union that represents TCGIS teachers and educational assistants. And with that, we will move on to our agenda for the evening. Our first order of business for tonight is to approve February's meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to approve February's meeting minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Hyde. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Director Albers. Any discussion on February's minutes as submitted?
One minor edit. Consent agenda in the minutes, it actually says we're approving, it should read January.
Thank you, Director Larson. That correction is noted. Any other corrections? We just have some piano coming through the walls. All right. With that, the minutes from our February board meeting are approved. Sorry, I'm thrown off by the piano. And our second order of business tonight is to approve the meeting agenda for tonight's meeting. I'll make a motion to approve the meeting as it appears in the board packet. Can I get a second?
Yeah.
Thank you, Director Smaka. Any discussion or additions to tonight's agenda? All right, hearing none, the agenda for tonight's meeting is approved. That brings us to our open forum. The school board recognizes the value of participation by the public in deliberations and decisions on school district matters. To maintain orderly and efficient meeting proceedings, the board provides a specified time of each regular business meeting during which members of the public attending in person may address the school board. Do we have anyone here who's going to address the school board? I don't think we do. Anyone online who had signed up to address the board? All right. And hearing none, our open forum is closed for the evening. That brings us to our next item on our agenda, which is our monthly community recognition. And we're so excited to have at least one person joining us this evening to be recognized by the board. I'll let Kevin pull up those slides. All right, our first group to recognize this evening is our library volunteers, and Director Zanfinnig is going to do that for us.
Sure, thank you. Our library is our kind of crown jewel here at TCJS. It's always the highlight of the tours, and it is curated by many volunteers. They assist our current media specialist, Heidi Schultz. That can be anything from checking in books, coding new books with the I don't know what those are called, but like
Barcodes.
Yeah, barcodes. At the beginning of the year, unpacking all of the new books and putting up the bulletin boards. There's a great selection right now of women's history books, things like that go along with our different months that we celebrate. And so the following list of people have helped in some capacity in the library. So thank you very much to Trisha, Gloria, Chigam, Nick, Elizabeth, Maggie, Anna, Tabea, Nikki, Christine, and Martina. Vielen Dank.
And Nick is here tonight, so
And Nick
special
is
thank you
here
tonight to Nick.
So much done, my new word.
Nice.
Wonderful. Thank you to all of our library volunteers. And next up, we have a long list, and so we're going to give a high level thank you. And Director Larson is going to do that for us for Festival of Cultures.
The board just wants to say a huge thank you to all of the organizers for the Festival of Cultures. I was able to attend, and this was my first experience at the event, and it was a totally enjoyable evening. I actually stayed downstairs for most of it to watch the performers, who were fantastic, and then discovered there was a whole bunch of other people and other things going on upstairs with the presentations and the food and the cafe and the different things that were going on. I heard a lot of great things that people said about it, but great work, and a huge thank you to everybody that organized, volunteered, and presented.
Yeah. It was a really fun event, and it's become a really wonderful tradition at our school. So I'll echo Ed's sentiment that it was a wonderful night with lots of volunteer hours in terms of administration and planning of the event. Excellent. All right. Well, we're moving quickly through our agenda for the night, and that means that you're up next.
Yeah, I think
the
I might
director's
move
report.
quickly as well. I was trying to figure out if it's that there isn't a lot going on in March, or if it's that there was only 3 weeks in between
I think
meetings. I think it's both. March is this time where we are working so hard to prepare a lot of things that you're going to see in the next coming months, but there
Mhm.
isn't a lot to report on just yet. So I have a light and breezy report today. Thank you, Herr Eberhard. Next slide, please. So we start with the financial indicators from the January report. We have still 82 days cash on hand. Our enrollment at this point was 559, and we've been working with 560 as our revised working budget, which is on par with our 560 average daily membership, or ADM. Our DSCR is at 1.02, well above bond covenant. And I did check in with Kelly a couple weeks ago as to what would make us move below that 1.0. And so I have a good idea of the number that we're keeping an eye on, and we're doing okay. And the fund balance is at 28.9%. Couple of operational updates for staffing. We welcomed Beerta Fretwell, who took over the spot that was vacated by Anna Miller. We had to wait a little while for her to get her affairs in order for her to join us. So super special thanks to Heidi Schultz, who held those 2 fifth grade classes down for a month. So 2 lovely women on staff. Thank you. Our enrollment is at 559, as I said. And those are our numbers. Offers out, waitlist, et cetera, that is all sort of becoming obsolete for this year. But Nicole did email me today and like re-enrollment is done. We're really getting firm numbers for 25, 26. So I would say that at the next board meeting, we'll have more information around that. The next slide shows at this point in time when I made this slideshow, where we were at for 25, 26 enrollment. And 575 is the magic number there. Are there any questions about the numbers on this slide yet? Okay, then the next slide is something that you've seen before. Nicole Crashell, our enrollment coordinator, puts these together. There was one from last year, and they're all sort of these different scenarios and different situations that pit the new enrollees in kindergarten with the students that will be remaining at TCJS for next year. And I was working with this spreadsheet and trying to understand it, and sometimes trying to get into Nicole Crashell's head is really hard for me. Liberal arts major, her brain thinks very differently. And so we were spinning around and we came up with a different way to think about what the number for enrollment should be next year when we're planning our budget. So the next slide is details that equation that we came up with. So we have 487 current students if you graduate the 8th graders. So for next year, if you have everybody in the building minus the 8th graders, it's 487. We have a typical 5.5 average attrition, which I will tell you last year was 7. Couple years before that, it was 3. So we're just going with an average. We end up with 460 of our existing students in the building right now will return. We have approximately 98 new students. Same attrition average equals 92 students for next fall. This is 460 plus 92 is 552. Some pretty easy math. And so we were recommending that the 25-26 budgeting enrollment number, using the numbers as they are right now, be 550. I think the X factor here is that re-enrollment survey was not finished when this was made. All applications were not received yet. And so I think there's some potential wiggle room. I think we'll flirt around with 550, but I don't see us going anywhere above 560 anytime soon. So Director Hyde and I will bring this to the finance meeting, the next finance meeting, to discuss this with that team. Did you want to add anything, Richard?
No, I don't think so, other than I'm always happy to see new ways of trying to strategize and plan. The more numbers that we can have to base these things off of, the more accurate we will be. So good work to you and Nicole.
We should add too that this number is based on roughly 3 to 5 years of data, depending on the data point, which is data we previously hadn't had in a real reliable way because of the pandemic, in addition to different means of tracking prior to the pandemic. But there are some new systems in place that are helping us do this with trending data that is helping us to get a little bit more accurate numbers.
Yep. Yeah, we get a little bit better at it every year. So
Yeah. I'm a proponent of taking a pretty conservative approach to the budget. I explained that I was part of letting people go in October, and it was one of the hardest things. It was just, it's not good for staff to do that. I would rather start a little leaner and add. That's the way I'd like to go.
That was a couple of years ago, just to be.
It was a couple of years ago. First year, I've clearly never gotten over it.
It's 5 years ago.
It's March. Yeah, it's my first 6 weeks.
Elizabeth,
Yes,
there was
sir.
an article on the Pioneer Press or whatever it's called now, earlier this week. You guys were talking about it.
No.
Oh,
No, I was just
and
asking Eric.
not
I don't know
bad.
what it's
It
called
wasn't
either.
bad. It wasn't something bad, but it was talking about St. Paul charter schools and the year over year increase and how it slowed down significantly. Like 2016, 17, 18, there was 9%, 7%, 6%, 5%, 2020, 13%. That was probably a switch due to public schools shutting down.
Mhm.
And then it was -3, -1, and then 1% increase, 1% increase. So it's not just us, it's slowed down considerably at a lot of the charter schools in St. Paul. And so we have to get more competitive for students than maybe we had to be before.
Interesting.
And I can share that article with you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, interesting when we're talking about budgets. I know that St. Paul sent out some community information yesterday that they're looking at a $51 million deficit that they need to try to dig out of. So public education is hurting all over, that's for sure. Let's see. So planning that number, that 550 or 555, where it is that we land. The next slide, Herr Eberhard, is kind of the next piece is then thinking about where the staffing fits. We choose the number, we see how many kids we're going to have in the classes, and then we choose staffing accordingly. And so the things that we've done for staffing timeline for school year 25-26 are lean into the intent to return data, plan meetings for people who have questions about positions, who have maybe personal situations that they want to talk to me about, explain their situation so we get an idea of who's coming back and who we need to find replacements for. And then we plan the full-time equivalents or FTEs according to that enrollment. And where we are right now, we're looking at 23 to 25 full-time equivalent teachers. We have conversations with employees about what that means. We have some teachers who are tier 1 and tier 1 teachers. We have to post those positions no matter what, because the state requires us to continue to seek more qualified teachers. And so there are some positions that have been posted already this week, internally first and then externally second. And so we're having those conversations. Kim Hackett did a great summary of all this that would happen in the next couple of weeks. We met with new teachers and talked them through the timeline. I think if you're an international staff member and you come and you see your neighbor's position posted, it can be confusing. So we try to explain this in as many different venues as possible.
Can you just talk about the difference between a tier 1 and a tier 4 and why charter schools have this mandate?
All schools
all
have the
schools
mandate. All schools have to advertise and have to try to attract and retain higher tiered teachers. So a tier 4 teacher, for example, Director Albers is a tier 4 elementary teacher. I was a tier 4 high school German and English teacher, and I bet Director Smaka, you're a tier 4 chemistry or science or something. So we went to school for that. That was our degree. That was always our intention. And so we have the highest tier of license that you can get. A lot of our international staff, that's also very Minnesota biased. So a lot of our international staff are also extremely qualified, have gone to school for what they teach here, but simply because of their international education, are usually falling in the like tier 2 to tier 3 range. There has been a recent change that tier 2 teachers who are coming internationally with bachelor's degrees and master's degrees in education are being able to qualify for higher tiers. So it's actually really great. They're making some movement on that. When you are a tier 1 teacher, it means that you have a bachelor's degree, maybe in the content area that you're teaching, or maybe not. And so that is sort of the lowest tier of teacher.
Thank you.
Did I answer why we're qualified, why we're responsible for posting that? I think it just has to do with the tiered licensure system through PELSB is responsible for putting the highest qualified teachers in classrooms. And so we have rules that we have to follow, like the tier 1 positions. If you're a tier 1 teacher, you don't necessarily get your job back. It needs to be posted for 60 days to allow for a higher tiered teacher to apply and interview for that position. And then we would be obligated to choose the higher tier the higher tiered teacher for that job. Sometimes there is a gray area or wiggle room that TC just leans into because of language, and the language often takes precedent. So this happens, you'll see this in Phi-Ed sometimes, where if we choose the language over a tier 4 licensed Phi-Ed teacher, we're putting more into our mission than Phi-Ed. So that happens sometimes too.
How many teachers are impacted by that?
How many tier 1 teachers are there? A handful, no more than 5. Good question. It's a good question. We have a number of all of the tiers, so. So those positions will be posted, and offer letters and non-renewals will go out before spring break. An offer letter is an offer letter that's going to likely a tier 3 or tier 2, tier 3 or tier 4 teacher who is maybe probationary, or maybe has shown, trying to think of what other reasons. So definitely non-probationary teachers that have shown good scores on their evaluations and their teacher evaluations, and are in a position that we will be offering next year. There is a possibility that there would be a teacher who would get a non-renewal that would be in a position that we are not able to offer next year. I can't think of an example, and our school is really small. It would probably give things away anyway, but that person, if that is the case, definitely had a conversation with me so that person knew what was coming. Okay, next slide, please. Look at those pictures. Look at that sky. Isn't that great? This is the new family play date that happened the weekend after the new family Kaffee Klatsch, which I saw lots of you there at. And that was the both really great events, well attended. Paige said that there was a ton of community and people forming pods already and connecting with other families, and was really, really well attended. The next slide, I think those are some great pictures. Look at that. This is my Park Bugle interview. Did anybody see it? Yeah, it was so fun. So fun. So I met with Laura and she interviewed me. She sent me the questions ahead of time. We kind of worked together, and basically her take on that was us explaining to the world why German. We get that question a lot. Why German? I've got that question my whole life. And so we just talked through why someone would maybe want an immersion school, why someone would want German, and then why someone should want ours. And it was a really enjoyable half hour. It's a really good conversation. And then that is Representative Athena Hollins on the right with Director Albers and I. We went to Charter Advocate Day at the Capitol on that snow day when everyone else stayed home. We trucked out to St. Paul. And we met with her for another good half hour of conversation. And our goal that day, we were prepped by the Max people. Our goal was to be a lobbyist and to go and explain about charter schools, to talk about lease aid and the discrepancy between what we receive and what we really could use and how it hasn't gone up since 2013. What else did we talk about? We talked about
Safe school.
the safe school funding, and we talked about what we would use that for. A lot of it was hinging around finances and just the uphill battle that charter schools face when it comes to finances. It was a good conversation. It was fun. She's really lovely. Coffee with the principal was last Friday. Grades 3 through 5 came. There were about 15 people. We sat in a little circle in the atrium, and the topic was that transition. It's that transition spot. And this was well planned, and I didn't intend to. The 4th grade families are the ones that are thinking about middle school. The 5th grade families were there to talk about the experience. And then the 3rd grade families were there to soak it all in so they don't have that anxiety that 4th grade families can experience at this time of year. And we just talked through the path. What is the path through the rest of middle school? And then what is that connection point to Central? good conversation with parents, lots of good questions around math classes and getting to Central and what does fifth grade feel like? And so we're looking forward to welcoming our new fourth graders next year.
I can interject since I
Yeah.
attended to.
You were there.
So from my perspective as a fourth grade parent, it was really interesting to hear the questions from the other parents. And to my surprise, there was very little asked about middle school here, more around what's the transition from middle school into high school. So less anxiety around transitioning from elementary school to middle school at TCGIS, more what's happening after and how are students prepared for that. So it was very interesting.
It was, yeah. Those people are thinking about the next steps. New family welcome night will be, I skipped the spring book sale is 4/17. That is organized by a group of like Monica Avery, I think is on that, Heidi Schultz, Catherine Radicke, I think Nina Maslowski are all working on that. Last year we made a few bucks on that. So if you have things you want to donate, turn that into the office. It was in the room brief today. New family welcome night will be 5/13. This is slightly different than the other one that we had. These are people who are signed on, signed up, have turned in their paperwork, and now need to hear now what. And so last year we did this as well. It's not just kindergartners, and we split it into sort of two groups. So we acknowledge that not everybody there is a kindergartner. We took the middle school kids in and talked to them about those middle school specifics and just get everybody ready for coming in August. There are a couple of new family play dates that are being worked on. Huge shout out to Lindsay Biller, one of the elementary EKs who organized the one that we saw pictures of, and people are working to get that going again. And then welcome to middle school night will be in person this year. Last year it was online. Maybe the last couple of years it was online. It'll be in person this year, and that is on April 23rd. And we'll bring in the soon to be middle school families and talk through what it means to be a fifth grader.
Can I ask you a quick question about coffee with principal?
Yeah,
Do we have one planned for middle school
we do.
parents?
I don't remember the date.
Okay,
I think
that's
it's in
fine.
April. There's a 6, 7, 8 one too. Yeah.
Great.
And the topics for 6, 7, 8, I think whenever we can get families that have sixth graders thinking about capstone and thinking about the German exchange and preparing financially for that, I think that's important. So that's one thing. And then we're going to talk about the pathway to the DSD2, because sixth grade is when the EVA SPI happens. And that's the sort of testing A2 level. And then the DSD1 is B1 level. And then the DSD2 at Central is B2. So we'll kind of just continue to educate about that common European framework.
Great.
Yeah, I don't remember the date.
That's okay.
But there is
Curious
one.
for my own.
Is it in the mornings?
It is.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just.
I can't go.
Yeah, it is. Are you thinking happy hour with the principal?
Yeah, that's right.
Let's try that
Might be
out.
hard for working families.
Yeah, I recognize that. There is, I did put in I think it's in the run brief today, the pulse survey went out. And I set aside 2 hours of time on the evening of conferences from 5 to 7. So you can book some time if you want to swing by and have like a one-on-one for working families.
That's a
That's great.
really good idea.
Mhm.
Yeah, thanks.
The 6th, 7th, 8th one is the 18th.
Of April.
Yeah, I just looked on the school calendar.
Great, thank you. Okay, action item needed. Back in the beginning of the year, when we were talking about READ Act training, MDE had released some information about reducing the number of instructional hours in order to allow schools to provide more professional development time for teachers who are doing the READ Act training. At that point, we probably suspected, but we're not for sure on just how much work that training was. And it's a lot. Like, it's turning out to be quite a lot. And we have teachers that we really need to give more time to. So I am going to recommend that we take the school board approved 5/7 early release day on May 5th. And make that a May 7th. and make that a non-contact day that we will use as professional development for teachers. The next slide will show you the breakdown of instructional hours and show you that with the adjusted times that the state has given us, we are well within the amount of minutes that we need, and so we will be able to take this time. To use this slide appropriately, if you look over to the right under total hours, for kindergarten, they have the lowest amount of required hours. That number 1071 is blue, and if you go down, or purple, if you go down to the key below the sheet, it'll say purple must be at least 850. So the kindergartners have plenty of time. Orange for 1-4 needs to be 1071. Orange 1 through 4 need to have 935. So we check there. Blue,
10:20.
oh, I think it's because we have 5, 6 as middle school, but the rest of the world thinks about that as elementary. So
Mhm.
that's why that's like that. And then blue for 7th and 8th graders, they need to have 1020 is the number. And we currently have 1028.5, meaning if we take that day completely off, we will still be over 1020. There is no worry about a snow day wrecking this because we have none of those left anyway. It would need to be an e-learning day. And we have 2 of those left. And I feel like on March 20th, we should be good. I know.
Barring any
We
power
should be
outages.
good. Barring any power outages, yeah, correct. So we will have enough hours if we make this day a professional development day. And I welcome discussion.
I just have more of a curiosity question.
Mhm.
How do we have 8 hours to like that we can give, but we don't have snow days left? What's the difference? Is it like the planned versus unplanned?
So some of it is that we added hours after we had that one snow day on the day that we were at the Capitol. That was supposed to be an early release day. And we actually just counted that as a full day.
Because
So
of the
we added,
e-learning.
so we added some hours.
Because
back
there's not like
then.
early release day
Correct.
e-learning plans,
Yep, counts
Okay.
as a
like
full day.
3/4 of the work.
And then I don't know if I know where the other hours can come from, because that would have left us with like a partial day.
Okay,
That's why this brought us up to being able to take a full day.
makes sense. But we're taking a partial day again. Because it's early release,
Correct.
right?
Correct, right. We had already accounted for 2 hours or whatever it is, 2.5 hours.
So is this just for this school year or is there a need to do the same thing next school year?
That's a good question, and I know that calendar has been. That plan has already been made, so I don't remember if it had the same amount of early release days or not. Does anybody else remember?
Thought I
How
had
many
the
early
same
release
number,
days were on that?
but we just moved them to
We
Fridays.
just
Oh,
moved
yeah.
them to
It's the same
Fridays.
number.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Because the same training will happen for a different group of people next year.
Just want to make sure we plan for that,
Yeah,
so we don't get
yeah, that's a really good
into
one.
issues with not enough,
Mhm,
of course.
mhm.
I wonder if we can also plan it proactively into certain PDs that are already scheduled. So
Well, We already have.
you already have, you've already thought about it.
But maybe not enough. So adding more, is what you're saying, yeah.
Or just using what we know is scheduled, so that to Jens's point that we don't have.
Yeah,
to-
and so scheduling more
Yeah.
time for OLA training on the PD days
Yeah.
versus what we did.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
But that's only a one time, right? So I know we do half this year, half next year.
Half of the teachers this year, half the teachers next year. Mhm.
After that, is there,
Well, that was the original plan, and now, because the state has had such a hard time getting the training to all teachers, they've actually extended phase 1 will continue next year. And then phase 2 will begin the year after that. So there will be a few new teachers next year, because if we change out a teacher, like a first grade teacher or something, for example, they're gonna have to jump in to the second phase. So we're looking at it for the next 2 more school years.
So while I think we stay clear of the total hours, there is also an instructional days requirement.
No, there are only instructional hours requirements. There are no requirements on days. This is the number of days that we actually have. When you add up. Because remember, kindergartners start 2 days later, so they have less days. So that column after length of day and minutes and number of days, those are just the number of school days.
I do not know if there's one or not. I just read it on the, it says must be at least 165 instructional days.
Oh, yeah, but so we already meet that for sure. PC just always has more school days. One other thing to point out is we talked to Kinder Club, and so Director of Kinder Club, Daisy Fudagaki Gerding, is ready to open up for Kinder Club that day with 40 spots.
And we can do financial help if anybody needs.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right. Then I will make a motion to adjust the school calendar for May 7th, 2025 from a half day to a full non-contact school day in order to allow for PD for teachers. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Right, motion carries. So we will obviously get that communication out to teacher or to
Yep, we will
parents
work on that.
and families.
Okay, academic updates.
Thank you, everyone. Good to see you.
I Yeah, third quarter pulse survey, not much to say about there yet. We'll bring results to probably the April.
Have a lot of
School board
reports
meeting.
out on April.
Mhm. April is gonna be a long one. That went out in the run brief today. It's like a 15 question and it's basically geared towards more of the instructional things. The first one was a lot of operational stuff, a little housekeeping, and this one's really much more towards the instructional. Next slide, is special education update. This is really great. We met our MOE, our maintenance of effort, which is, if I had to explain that in 30 seconds, because I saw Director Larson's eyes ask me. That is taking the amount of money that we spent on special education last year, and you are not allowed to go below. You have to maintain that level of financial backing the next year. And you're only allowed to dip down in certain instances where you would maybe have a mid-year resignation. And then you have to provide all kinds of, what am I trying to say? All kinds of
Supporting
documentation to show why you didn't. I'm assuming it's because the state wants us to continue to provide a high level of support for students on IEPs and not need to worry about whether it's costing a lot. The audit wrapped up. Director Tammy Stahl and I have been combing through the results, making a high level summary. She's actually coming next Thursday in person, and she and I are going to work together on what our report will be out to the board. And so that will be at the April meeting. And then she will join us via Zoom for that one. She's also conducting a workload assessment, which will help us when we're talking about staffing. I'm not sure if a workload assessment has happened in the special education department in the last 5 years or so. Basically what that means is it looks at all of the IEPs. It takes into consideration the service minutes for certain things like, this is mostly the social worker, speech pathologist, OT, school psychologist, things like the EAs, things like that, where there are certain number of minutes, but also case managers. So it takes caseloads into consideration and then kind of spits out, okay, you have these many service minutes, this many kids, you should have ideally this, and this much social worker, this much, et cetera. So you can kind of see where we're at, if we're high or low, and then we can adjust our staffing accordingly. And there was also a federal setting 3 room that was added this month. So that if you, I can explain that in 30 seconds too. All special education students are in a setting. It's either, although it's not a physical space, it's just a metaphorical space. Federal setting 1 is the least amount of support that they receive, and then federal setting 4 is the most. Federal setting 4 buildings or rooms are usually not in a traditional school. They're usually like, they can be medical care facilities, things like that. And so federal setting 3 means that the child is spending at least 60% of the day or more outside of the classroom. Okay, a couple of highlights for our task forces, innovative education. We have Minnesota History Day. We've got a bunch of students going to state and continuing to show good TCGIS representation there. We had the 6th grade students and some board members go to the Minnesota History Center and the Capitol and visited the planetarium in 3rd grade. The ELA curriculum review continues. That's English language arts. The standards were revised, and so the next step is to take a look at curriculum. Catherine Radke got huge boxes of stuff delivered the other day, and we're combing through. And the great thing about that is that the READ Act money that we received for curriculum, the $23,000 that we received this year, Isabel was able to code about 13,000 of it to stuff we got this year. And then the rest we're just going to hold over and use for the ELA curriculum. So, yay.
Awesome.
Yeah. Esther Noy and I are beginning to prep for the spring curriculum advisory committee, where we'll bring a lot of this ELA curriculum questions to and bring that to the community and talk through what we think are the best suggestions. And a lot of it is really tied to the READ Act and to the science of reading. And yeah, Esther's really geeking out around that. It's really awesome.
Who all participates in that committee?
Emily Albers,
Staff?
teachers,
There are some
Nina
parents.
Maslowski's
There are
usually
some
there.
parents.
Yep, it's
Mhm.
supposed to be.
More parents than
It's no longer,
staff.
yeah, it's no longer a requirement, but a suggestion
Okay.
and a goal is to have 2/3 parents, 1/3 staff on that committee. So,
Are we doing anything to try to drive new parents or something to try to get people engaged?
Well, we had that thing in November that was also during conferences where Esther and I had sort of open office hours for a couple of hours. And there were a couple of parents that wandered in and we just kind of talked to,
Okay.
yeah. The MCAs is the latest, and Esther Noy is our DAC, District Assessment Coordinator, and Catherine Radke has stepped in to be the SOC, the secondary assessment coordinator. And what's great about that is that this is the succession plan that we've been talking about. This is this overlapping and this making sure that MCAs will continue. You know, if we were to ever lose Esther, we have to be able to be, we can't, right? We can't. That we have that covered. So we're working hard to make sure that that everyone knows how to do all the things. Oh, for the whole child slide, we had a middle school dance, Valentine's Day dance on February 28th. 180 students attended and Capstone raised a whopping $700+ at the cafe. So much snacks. That's the most we've ever raised, but doubled it. It doubled our highest ever. So thanks to everybody who contributed snacks, all the parents, all the 8th grade parents who worked at the Snack Shack. It's an amazing amount. The Snack Shack.
What's the biggest seller?
I don't know. There are a lot of beverages and homemade things, and then there's always Oreos and Chips Ahoy and like that kind of stuff. And
getting all sugar high
Just
before they
all
go
sugared up and then they go
tear it up
dance
on the
off.
dance floor.
Absolutely. That's great.
That's $50.
Yes, kids bring 20s. Yeah. School-based therapy started with Tara Fortune. I mentioned that way back in maybe October. And so she's got a spot in the building. She's seeing at least 7 to 8 kids and her caseload is growing. She's really lovely. And then conflict resolution skills are the big topic in SEL, social emotional learning, for March.
Is that every like ES and MS or is that?
Correct.
Can you remind me about who's funding Tara?
Tara funds herself. We do not pay anything for Tara. It's kind of like the Vienna Community Music. We just give her a space. She works through insurance, families. We're just meeting families where they're at, where their kids are at. We get nothing up from it except for
Kids
healthier
don't have to
kids.
leave.
Kids don't have to leave. Yeah, healthier kids. Last but not least, German immersion. The DSD one is almost completely wrapped up. We've got some kids still doing their speaking assessments tomorrow, but we are ready to check that box for 24-25. If you saw my Run Brief article, Fabrice Liesegang was here from the ZFA. He's the new guy. He's in Chicago. Gabi Meisminkler, I think, is back in Germany now. And it was really great to meet him. And I look forward to a long partnership with him. Let's see. And then the TCAN, I think that's how they say it, is the Twin Cities Alumni Network. I met with Junior at Central, Sophie Yamaniab. Maybe you've heard of her. And she and her crew have some really great ideas about how we can bring the TCJS Central kids back home to TCJS to help out, maybe to visit with the little kids, to support the 8th graders as they're making their transition. They're ready to jump in a bunch of different ways. And so I gave them some homework. They're going to work on stuff. I saw that they created an Instagram page and added me to a friended. Am I hashtagging right now? They,
I don't
yeah, so now they have a social presence and I'm really excited to work with them. It's really awesome. It was great to see Sophie. That's it.
Great.
Any questions?
So even in a month where there's not a lot going
I know, I
on, there's
still talk
still
a
a
lot.
lot going on. What was the impetus for the alumni network? I think it's really cool and
I think genuine love for our school, I would love to say, is one of them. But a lot of the students are National Honor Society members, and those organizations have community service as part of their core values and giving back. And so I'm sure they were all tasked with doing community service hours. I think it's great that when they had an opportunity to do community service, that they thought about our community.
And they thought about what was it like for their transition. The first thing they posted was 10 things I wish I knew before going to Central. Right. And so it's just, and now that they're able to reconnect with the school and give back, I think it's pretty cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we get them to call it Toucan and make a little,
They have a toucan on their
Yeah.
thing, and I couldn't figure out
Do they?
what is that
Yeah.
for?
but-
oh,
their
that's
best.
I
amazing.
got it. Yeah, it's really
All
great.
right. And kids are quicker than I am, I guess. But it's like sticking with the birds mascots. Perfect.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
adorable. We've got great kids.
Absolutely. All right. Any other final questions? Great. Well, we are a little ahead of schedule, but I would say let's plan to recess for
35.
15 minutes. That's what I was thinking. We'll reconvene at 7:35. Short recess, and we'll see you back in 15. Okay. All right, it is 7:38, and we'll call this March meeting of the Twin Cities German Immersion School Board back to order. Our next item on the agenda is just a quick discussion on our spring retreat for the Board of Directors. in reviewing the Q3 authorizer report, there were some topics that are part of that report that I thought could be good for us to spend some time on at our spring retreat. And I also wanted to open it up to this group just for a quick discussion on any topics that you see being advantageous for us having a dedicated time to discuss at a retreat. So a couple of the items that I have been thinking about, and I'd welcome you guys to add to the list. Family engagement. How can we continue to engage new families in volunteer opportunities, one-time or ongoing? And what are some creative tactics that we can do to kind of help people feel like they can be a part of the curriculum advisory committee, or they can be part of a board subcommittee? Because our school really does rely on that engagement of families, as we all know, to help us continue to grow and succeed. So that's one topic that I have been thinking about. The second one has been succession planning. As a board, it is our job to support administration in crafting realistic succession plans for our leadership as well as the board. And we have a lot of things documented, but that is not one of them. And I know Elizabeth and her team have been working on some of that work too, but maybe spending some time to refine it and really make sure that we all are on the same page with that. So those are two topics that I've been thinking about. Curious if anyone else has any other ideas, or it can also be kind of continuing education for the board, because there's a lot to be familiar with.
I had added the idea of looking at the board committees and looking at what was needed for the next year.
That could be part of succession planning.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up just community engagement, but I think with the topics that you've already brought up, we could just kind of broaden that. Not just looking for volunteers, but how do we get the community engaged as a whole in everything?
Are we planning before or after May 7th? Be my question.
I think it would be ideal to have some time before if schedules align, which is always somewhat challenging. Did you have a preference? Or do you have, what's your thought?
If it's before, we can definitely have a portion of the day to look at the strategic planning and kind of get a idea of what our feedback could be as stakeholders, to have that open conversation and have more refined ideas than trying to do it on our own and then come together during the hearing session.
Gail did send out some sample surveys that I will forward on to everyone here for review prior to those meetings. So maybe that can be a part of that as well, or just to start us thinking, to your point, to kind of get our thoughts together and be less willy-nilly about our feedback that we share with Gail. Any others, professional development type work that would be helpful? We still have our contract with Charter Source for the remainder of the year. So it could be too that we all do a training and reflect on that, or if we want to bring someone in, could be an option as well.
I mean, if we were to do something like that, I think finances is always a good choice, just because we hear about it a lot. We struggle with it as a charter school. We advocate for it at Charter School Advocacy Day on the Hill. We can see what's going on in the Department of Education federally and state level, and all of those things kind of combining is how do we prepare for all of the things that we can to be on top of what we can predict is going to happen.
Are you envisioning like a discussion on just like current finance at the school in general, or like a finance 102 type of
Somewhere in the
class?
middle of that. Yeah, somewhere in the middle. I think it's helpful to you know, just make sure that everyone's still up to speed on what things look like and what we're getting and how these things work. Especially with COVID funds starting to, of course, disappear, and how do we, you know, yeah, just keep all of those things. It's not my area of expertise. Let's go with that.
Like a state of the state on finances. Yeah, school finances in general, not
I would
necessarily
appreciate
just
that too.
TCJS.
Yeah.
And you ready to give it?
Yeah.
Maybe we can put it together.
I'm also just one, this is completely off base, but I'm just a sucker for the fact that we've been talking about the Strength Finders thing lately.
Oh, yeah.
Doing that, it's
Yeah.
a fun, I find that to be both like helpful
Yeah.
for the composition of the board, but then also on top of it, just the kind of fun aspect of doing something.
Yeah.
A little lighter too.
Yeah.
It would be fun to do something like that. Sounds like we're gonna have a 12-hour.
I think it's
Order
gonna be a
treat.
full day.
Sleeping bag.
6 to 6.
We're taking all this information seriously. Okay, I like it.
No, um. All right,
You want to talk about where?
I know where you'd like to suggest, so
Mhm.
hit me.
So I did talk to somebody at the historical center. They have a room we can use. It's not free. Which is disappointing. However, is anybody else here a member? No?
Is there an advantage if one of us was a member?
Well, so what I've always wanted to do for a board retreat, and we haven't been able to, is kind of go through the museum for like an hour or so together
Mhm.
and then start a retreat there. When I mentioned that we usually don't pay for like our rooms, we just go to the library or whatever. They said that they could probably help us get some just free admission tickets to to kind of cut it out. And they're like, well, if you're a member and like one other person is, I can maybe get you like 10 passes with the room
Oh,
to kind of, so then we're not paying for both. But I think it would be around like $200 to rent the room.
Oh, okay.
So if we wanted to think about that, I think it would be kind of fun.
Okay. That's less than I thought you were gonna say.
Yeah, they want 250, and then I asked if there was a member discount. They said no, but we'll give you 10% because you asked.
Great.
Jeez.
All right.
So that's an
We're
option.
looking into that.
Yeah.
Do they have certain dates that are available?
I told them that we had a meeting tonight
Okay.
and that we'd possibly discuss dates, but it sounds like it's fairly open.
Okay.
Policy of food.
We can bring food.
Can eat outside in the cold.
I didn't even have to ask. I was like, there's tables if you want to bring lunch.
Thing outside to eat, but
Yeah. They're just at the library. We always feel like pariahs for trying to eat lunch there.
I just looked up the Minnesota Humanities Center. It's a place that Max has done stuff just to see. And they're charging $69 a person for using their spaces. And it's totally like a city
Wow.
center space. So
Whoa.
that 200, I mean, that doesn't seem like such a bad
no.
price.
Yeah, so and they said that 225 then with the 10% discount is 4 hours, and then it was like $50 like for another 2 hours or something like that. So if we wanted to make it a long one, but I don't think they'd count it against us if we did the museum. Like while we were in the museum, that time doesn't count.
Great.
So what's the organization again? So
Minnesota History Center.
It's beautiful in there.
It's one of my favorite places. And I would highly recommend getting a membership because a membership there gets you like 20 something
Mhm.
different places across Minnesota, like Split Rock, Mill City Museum, Fort Snelling. Like you get into all of them with it.
I think my wife's grandmother is, or would have to ask.
Yeah.
But that
There's our
counts.
second.
Yes, speaker.
No, she's like 86, 88 now, I know. She's very involved.
Right, any other ideas for places? It sounds like Cool idea.
And we already know the menu, right? Didn't we determine that at last week?
Oh, yes, we did.
Oh,
the naughty dinner.
Mhm.
Perfect.
What?
The naughty donor.
Oh, yes.
Abner brought it to the meeting last week and we were all like, what is that and where do I get it?
Great. Okay, so then we just have to find a date. And I don't know that we need to do that here. Cause I think that will be challenging. Everyone look at your Saturdays in April and let me know.
I think if we wait till the committee of the whole, though, it might be too.
I will send an email out.
Okay, great.
We don't need to compare calendars here, but okay, wonderful.
Can we do the online where you?
Yeah.
Like the Survey Monkey
Doodle.
or Doodle. Yeah.
Beautiful. Do you want to send that out?
I have no idea how it was set up. I just,
Oh, I just made a grid and I
can do it.
had everybody.
I can do it. Otherwise,
If you wouldn't mind, that would be great. Thank you. Perfect. Any other final thoughts on spring retreat work? I think those are all really great suggestions, and if anybody thinks of anything in the meantime, let me know. Perfect. That brings us to board committee reports. And I have a fundraising committee talking first, and Lindsay graciously agreed to put together a really brief overview of Raise Craze, which is going to be our fundraising platform that we're using. She also came with a full box of stuff so that we can get this little ditty up and running. So
I use the same, there we go.
thank you for pulling this together. Take it away, Director Smock.
All right. So Raise Craze was an idea brought to us by Kirsten. Something new to try for our spring fundraiser rather than just doing another ask like we did in the fall. So it's an online system, a website, and basically what you do is you email friends, family, anyone from around the country or around the world, and basically ask for donations for the school. And then the student in return does a random act of kindness. So they're called AOKs, which is very cute. Act of kindness. So the student pledges that they'll do an act of kindness, and they're very age specific. So kids in elementary school might chalk a walk for a neighbor. A middle school kid might, I don't know, do some yard work for a neighbor or something like that. So basically the students are spreading kindness. I'll go to the next slide. So students and families, so how can they get involved? They can collect donations through the secure online platform. And as a way to give back to the act of kindness, not encouraged, or not mandatory, but encouraged. It's very user friendly. If you go to the next slide, I'll show you, I signed one up for my handsome son. He doesn't know this is happening.
I'm sure he's tuned in to the board meeting.
So I made an account for him. It was really easy. If you have more than one student in the school, you can do both of your kids or all four of your kids on the same account. So it's very seamless for you. On the right side, you can donate yourself. And then where it says send email, if you click the next slide, you can add a donor name. So I put mama in there and my email address, and then it was really easy. I got an email and I was able to click donate, and it has kind of I didn't put that screenshot in there, but it has what he's doing for the school and his acts of kindness that he picked out, or his mom picked out for him.
Just for the sample.
For the sample,
Just for the sample.
exactly, yes, for the sample. So friends, family around the country, around the world, it's super nice to do. And then that is what it looks like. He completed 8 theoretical acts of kindness so far, raised $30 from the donation I made. And then on the right is his passport. So they aim to get all 9 stamps, but they have a stamp for random things like 3 acts of kindness, 5 acts of kindness, send 10 emails, donation from another state, et cetera, et cetera. On the left, you can see the acts of kindness I picked out for him. Washing the dishes daily, collecting toiletries, starting a family gratitude journal, making a special meal, et cetera. So there's ones to choose from, and then families can also create their own. So I created the washing the dishes for him as an example. Yep. Go next. And then this is what they basically get for their passport. So 3, 6, and 9 stamps. Students will get a prize. So I just kind of picked out fun, cheap stuff on Amazon that my own kids helped me pick out that they think they would like. The more money they collect, the more acts of kindness they do, the more stamps they earn. And it's great that they can earn stamps just by doing the acts of kindness and not necessarily the money side of it. And then if you can go to the next slide. So teachers and staff. So they can encourage students to log their acts of kindness. Also, teachers can incorporate this into their class and advisory groups. We're also going to do a classroom competition to kind of promote the enthusiasm and focus on kindness as well. So these are the little thermometers for each classroom door that Adriana helped me decorate. So there's a little dollar thermometer, and 50 acts of kindness is the goal. And then once the class reaches 50 acts of kindness, what I had picked out was the class gets to do a travel day where they wear PJ and comfy clothes. They raise $1,000. They get to go do outdoor games. If they collect donations from the most states, they're going to do an paper airplane competition. So those could be changed up, but that's kind of the classroom competition. And then overall, whatever elementary class and middle school class has the most overall. We don't have it picked out for what the students win yet, but for the teachers, I started emailing random establishments around random establishments around the city, and we're going to put together a pretty cool basket full of goodies and gift cards. So I already have 3 things for the baskets, which is great. Additionally, yeah, you can go to the next slide. Additionally, each teacher will get a couple sheets of these stickers that I put together and printed. So nothing to do with the competition. If a kid gets caught being kind, they'll get a kindness sticker, and I made sure to get it proofread by Claudia Mueller. So thank you, Claudia. So that they're grammatically correct. And so that'll be kind of a fun way to bring excitement. Next slide is exactly what I just talked about, so you can go ahead. And then why we chose this. So as a fundraising committee, we really wanted to try something new. I think in the past we had something like this. I don't quite remember. Was it kindness?
We did kind of a tribute wall where
Oh, yeah.
people could honor someone in our community who had helped their family, or a teacher or a staff member or another student, and put up a flower, and we called it our garden of I'm totally blanking, but
Yeah. So it kind of aligns with that. The giving back to the community seems to be kind of a spring theme, which is fun. Also, it aligns with our values as a school. Also, for fundraising purposes, it expands the donor pool a lot. So when we just do general asks, it typically is for parents. But when students email family, friends, acquaintances, it expands the donor pool a lot. And next. Yep, sponsors and advertising. So I've been asking businesses. The nice thing is that Raise Craze is very, very user-friendly, and everything is automated for us. So on the right, you can see that they automated an Instagram post that we can just do. They have the text all picked out for us. They have the text and the flyers I printed all pre-written. So it's really nice and easy.
Next, already talked about this. Also, as the competition goes, there's a leaderboard that's public facing, so it's by class, but no student names or anything like that. So you can see how many emails, how many states, etc. And that's about it. $25,000 goal. I think it's super cool that we're focusing on kindness.
And there's also
Everything.
like the global aspect of having a
Yes.
passport and having competitions about how many countries do you have donations from and states and things like that, that kind of also align with our school.
Yeah.
As a global community. So
I love it. I think you've done an amazing job.
yes, thank you for being the lead on this and putting
Yeah,
all this
It's been
together.
fun putting it together. Yeah.
Any questions? I know
When's
we've
it
talked
gonna
about it a
start?
couple.
April 10th. So the Thursday after spring break, Thursday or Friday after spring break, and then it will go till May 2nd. Because there's a cafe clutch that day. That is kind of our last
Conclusion.
hurrah. Mhm.
So it'll be a fairly passive campaign. We'll do some social media highlights, send a few emails, but there's not a lot of like active
Mhm.
stuff, and it all kind of goes through Raise Craze, gets deposited right into our bank account,
Mhm.
so that whole financial side of things is really easy too. So
And that we did a test run for too, and I think worked pretty well.
excellent. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Who's next on our committee report?
I think it's me.
Take it away.
All right, we met on March 4th for our second meeting of 2025. Got an update on switching banks. I think the ball is finally in our court again, and this should be one of the last things. Elizabeth, we just need to fill out those cards. I'll call you tomorrow about it.
Okay.
And then, we need to fill out just signatory cards to match, and we're gonna have to chase down the ABC board
ABC.
members. I think that's gonna be the one that'll take a couple days. So, but we should be able to get that done next week if we can get them to. Two of them when they're here picking up their kids or something, and one of them I can try to go meet. And and then I think Elizabeth, you talked about this at one of your director's reports about the 990s, but you changed the process there. So that's pretty good. We briefly talked about refinancing our bonds. Not enough to give a report on that or anything, but we will be talking about it again in our April meeting, and we will be meeting with a representative from Piper to kind of float it.
What some of the, I mean, obviously I know I generally refinance, but why now looking at these bonds?
Because with where our enrollment is, we are not maximizing our lease aid.
Hmm.
So if we could refinance them to bring the payment down, stretch it out, and just to a point where we're maximizing lease aid around like 570, 580 instead of 650. Because I think we're a long way from 650, but we could reasonably get to 580. And that is, $150,000 a year coming out of the general fund. So that would help a lot. It's just a
No, I was
very
curious
initial,
about
like,
it.
is
Yep.
this a good idea with where interest rates are at right now? I don't know if the numbers will even work out, but it's worth exploring.
And with their credit rating
But yes,
getting boosted a little bit.
be a way to take advantage of that and keep it.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
enrollment is always a discussion. However, I think we hit that pretty well already. Then went over the January financial reports, Everything looks good there. Elizabeth already gave you the numbers. No update from campus planning, but we have a meeting a week after spring break, I think. We should maybe do it in person again at some point if we can make that happen, but we can talk about that. And our next meeting will be April 8th, the second Tuesday of the month because of spring break. So anybody who's planning to attend, know that it's going to be a week later. And that's it, unless there's any questions, concerns. Good.
All right, Committee of Whole is next. We met just last week to talk through a number of things, mostly focused on enrollment. Nicole Greshel was gracious enough to join us for the first 15 minutes to give us a rundown on enrollment projections, mostly looking ahead to next year. Elizabeth gave us a quick overview and preview of tonight's report to talk through. We also spent some time talking about our current board vacancy and the upcoming elections, kind of brainstorming together some potential candidates to reach out to so that we can have a full board that meets our bylaws next year. Did a quick rundown on our spring fundraising campaign, which we just heard from Lindsay. Happy to announce that we did receive a $4,000 grant from Frederickson and Byron Foundation earlier this month, I believe, right, it came in?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Couple weeks ago. So thanks to former director Lori Hartman for helping to make that possible. And then we started a discussion on spring retreat, which we concluded here today. So that was kind of the rundown of Committee of the Whole for March. It's been a quick turnaround between board meetings and Committee of the Whole this month. Dr. Allers, governance.
Speaking of turnaround, we met this week, although it feels like a while ago.
That was 2 days ago, 3 days ago.
Yeah, I know. Starting off with the AMCOM, like Director Reg mentioned, we've been talking appointment, a little bit more teacher-centered, whereas the election is going to be not teacher-centered in terms of recruiting new board members. So again, if anyone has people in mind to run for the election for the 3-year seats, would love for you to reach out to them, talk to them at Mosque and Ball, etc. Should be a fun time on Saturday, and yeah, get network with some other people as well, in hopes that they might want to join us. And yeah, other than that, I'm gonna call this like the slightly low-hanging fruit month, because if you looked at the packet, there are 5 policies up for approval tonight. Most of them do not, or the vast majority of them do not have any significant changes whatsoever to them outside of what was required by law. And then we have a brand new policy, but we'll get into that in a moment. So I would make a motion to approve policy 516.3, which is stock epinephrine, 419, which is tobacco-free environment, 526, which is the hazing prohibition policy, 206, which is public participation in board meetings, and lastly, 521, which is student disability non-discrimination.
I will second.
Sweet. That's the second. So like I said, there's not a whole lot in terms of things that have changed with 419, 526, 206, and 521. However, the first one I mentioned earlier, 516.3, don't ask, is new. It is stock epinephrine. This is something that has been in committee for the entire school year so far, and we finally had Zach,
Zach's fault. It's not
yeah,
mine.
Zach's fault. We got the approval from him that saying that this was good to go. We had some good questions around this policy. Basically, stock epinephrine, for those of you not involved in this discussion, epinephrine is what we use in EpiPens to basically counteract allergic reactions. And so this is a policy to have some stock EpiPens in our health office on site for those who do not already have a known allergy that would require an EpiPen. So there are 2 different sizing dosages, which are outlined in this as well. Basically, it's based on how big the kid is. And so those things, we had some good questions and discussion around who was eligible to use them, how, what would be the process of that? How do we make sure that our school is not, at risk for any liabilities that come of this? But it's also one that, of course, in alignment with what we have currently in our wellness policy is super helpful. Because we don't want children in our school sharing food right now, and according to 533, which is the wellness policy. But we know that obviously things happen and children are more prone to having allergies that are unknown. And so having this on hand is super helpful. So that's kind of the overview. President Bennett?
I would just add that this policy was initiated by Mariah Schoonover, who is our contracted licensed nurse. She's really pushing for it, and she will be the supplier for the EpiPens, and she'll handle the training, and they'll come up with a plan so that Monica Avery will be trained. And then they do some cross training with our front office staff anyway for health aid things. And so that's how we'll handle it once it's approved.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Who funds the EpiPens?
That's a good question.
Because they have an expiration date, so they need to be rotated like.
Every year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good question. I know that when we have the overdose medication, Narcan. I know, it just showed up. She just brought it to us.
Okay.
I'm gonna guess federally funded. That's what I'm gonna guess, because I don't remember every single bill.
Yeah, we do have Narcan.
We do.
Yeah, right.
We do. 2 of them. And staff is trained on it at the beginning of the year. Mhm. You can.
Or do you want to go through each of them and do one vote at the end, or?
Yeah. Looking at 419, which is the tobacco-free environment, there was a few things that were changed. Thank you again, former Director Hartman. So 2.3 is new. It's a violation of the policy occurs when any student possesses any type of tobacco related devices. So this is kind of updated to ensure that we're including things like electronic cigarettes and vaping things and all of that. So those have been added. That's the same as 3.1, which is all highlighted in yellow as well. And then 3.2, which is the definition of heated tobacco product. So again, just trying to cover all the bases with the updating of technology in those realms. But all of this was stuff that was coming from the updated NISBA version. So this was not necessarily our saying, oh, we should change this. This was coming from those model policies. And there's an entire section 5 on vaping prevention instructions. So this was something we discussed as well about how this is, it says 5.1, the charter school must provide vaping prevention instruction at least once to students in grades 6 through 8. So kind of on the topics of the health discussions that are often via Zoom, ? Just talking about, again,
This is new? Did they change the age? Maybe it used to be just 8th grade? Because we've always done that.
Yeah.
That's always been
I think
statute.
they just changed the age
I think they
range.
moved it down.
Yeah,
I think
I
it
think
used to
they
be
did.
8th grade.
Yeah, Lori wasn't there on Monday to give any insight into that specifically, but assumption is that they're lowering some of those things just because of how marketable it seems to be
Makes
lately.
a lot of sense.
So
Yeah.
as long as we do it once in one of those grades, and if we're already doing it in
Is
eighth
that how
grade,
you read that?
at least once to students in grades 6 through 8. Do you read it differently?
I don't know. I'm just wondering how it reads to everyone.
I read it as once a year
I do
to the full.
It,
Once a
to
year,
me, it
2
doesn't say
grades,
a
6,
year.
No, it
comma,
doesn't.
7, comma, and 8.
We did discuss that at the committee level, and the consensus was it has to be once in that 3-year range.
Yeah,
If we do it annually anyway.
We do it in 8th grade.
Yeah.
We could just move it.
Hmm.
Okay, great.
other than that, not much has changed. The legal statute of vaping prevention is in there, so I believe that's taken straight from the statute,
That
so
is, yeah.
I would assume that that's their wording and we can use that too. However we see fit. Going down to 526, I tried to get them all, make sure I got them. Hazing prohibition, no significant changes whatsoever. Nothing more to say on that really. 206 is public participation in school board meetings. Just a few vocab changes in that one, nothing of significance either in terms of changes to that. 521 is student disability non-discrimination. There's a little bit of an add to paragraph 2.3 with 2.34, which is the impairment that is episodic or in remission. That protects just others that may be dealing with things that would otherwise potentially discriminate them against them. So that one is super short. And that is all for the policies.
Great. Did your motion include all 3?
Yeah,
Or
all 5.
5, sorry.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I
Great.
did.
All right, all those in favor of approving the policies as noted in the board packet and proposed by Director Albers. Do you want to give the numbers real quick?
It's policies 516.3, 419, 526, 206, and 521.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Hi.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries and policies are approved. Well done. Just 5 more off your list.
I think we're over the speed bump.
Okay,
I
good.
think we've got like 2 or 3 to put into first reads. And then just getting out some of the other ones, but look for the wellness policy coming soon, speaking.
Oh, yes. All right. I think that moves us to switch between my
Liaison.
liaison updates, right?
Yeah, I can start. Staff council had a meeting last week. It was a very good meeting. Director Zenfitting joined us for the first 20 minutes or so. With the topic of revisiting our charter and kind of redefining the staff council in the same manner that was done with the parent council. The staff council was beyond open to the idea. They were very excited about the idea. We, after 20 minutes or so, Director Zenfitting left, and I stayed and we discussed the benefits of doing that, dug through and found some old starts of charters and whatnot to base it off of, and talked about the benefits of having some communication templates ready to go and a directive of what is within scope of the council and what is not. So I anticipate that there'll be some work done with that in the next couple months before the next meeting. And hopefully at the next meeting, we can kind of finalize some of those things, and I can give you a report after that of how it's going. But I think the idea is mostly to have this ready to go for the staff council next year to approve it and kind of get going with it right away.
Great. Any questions for Director Hyde? Staff council? How many people are on staff council this year?
4, not including myself.
All right. Parent liaison.
Yes, they met. I was unfortunately unable to attend. But they are working on their charter still. And they discussed community building ideas, kindergarten onboarding, as well as parent education topics. I sent you guys an email about to you, Kristen and Lindsay, while we were talking about the raise craze and what role, if any, could the parent council play to help in rolling that out. We can talk about that, and then I'm happy to engage and help drive that through the parent council.
That'd be great. Wonderful. All right. Administrative liaison, Director Zamping and I, and along with Director Hyde, continue to meet every Tuesday. Kind of go over high level things going on at the school. The majority of our last few meetings have really been focused on preparing for the last week's CBA discussions, which we'll talk about in closed session here momentarily. So that has been the majority of our work together as of late. Right. We are well ahead of schedule, so if anyone has new business, now would be the time.
I was just gonna add that the playground will be started on the Monday of spring break.
Yeah.
Ah, how long will it take?
That's
Do we have any idea?
They're planning to finish it before we get back.
Oh, wow.
No. Okay.
I don't know.
Are we still selling the old playground?
No one has talked about selling the old playground.
Wasn't there a conversation about
There
that?
was originally
But now
thought
that we
that
have
Lately.
maybe,
Okay.
and I don't even know if it was selling, it was
giving.
having it go somewhere to be used and not just
Mm.
thrown away. However, it's all metal. My assumption, I guess we could check, is that even if it just goes to be discarded, it's going to get recycled.
Mhm.
I mean, it's valuable enough that any demo company is going to pull that aside and take it somewhere.
Mhm.
I'll check it with Andy.
That's great. And that will include the ropes course, the swing.
Yep, the swing,
And the little
the,
spinner that wasn't installed.
The little spinner.
yep.
Great.
And the bars. I
And
think
the
the bars are still a part of it. And the bars.
And the bars. Not 7-layer
How many
bars.
more times can we say it?
Gymnastics stars. All right. Great, that's exciting.
I didn't realize it'd only take them a week. That's awesome.
Let's see. We're prepared to pivot and come back from spring
Yeah,
break if
we
we
need-
need to.
Suppose it's not that, doesn't take that long. Just pour some concrete puddings, let them dry, and then bolt stuff to them.
Yeah. Yeah, it was,
Unless it's like, 30 degrees.
Yeah.
there's a lot less work that needs to be done with this one.
Great. Well, that's a fun note to end on.
Can we do a board gathering at the opening again, like we did with the other one? Perfect. I just want to be the first one on the swing.
You have to beat somebody to it.
Oh, man.
I did get the slide, so I won't be too upset if you beat me there.
Right. Quick question on point of order. Do we need to make any kind of motion to move our closed session earlier, or are we okay?
Should be good.
Great.
As long as we're here,
Perfect. All right. With no other items to discuss, I will adjourn this meeting. Our next regular meeting will be on April 24th, 2025. And we will now move to the closed session of the board to discuss the collective bargaining agreement. So this meeting is adjourned at 8:23.
Take 5 minutes to put the tables away.